How's it going, everyone? I am the mostly civilized caveman. And recently I started work on a kind of not ARG, but unfiction, like almost found footage, found document, uh, piece of fiction, on Instagram, which I will have linked in the description. And for this project, I have to fabricate a lot of pictures that don't exist because the town that the pictures are from don't exist. And so to do this and make it feel a little bit more authentic, I have to age down a lot of the pictures. And while doing this, I realized that in the past, when I've done a lot of like physical aging projects, like making pictures and graphics that look old or look super physical. I get asked a lot from those that I work with, uh, how do I do it? And it's actually not a hard process. I think it's one that's decently easy to learn. And so in this case, I think it's actually a great jumping off point. How do you make photos look to age? And I'm because this is actually such a simple process, I'm going to later in the video also show how to make what kind of looks like a double exposure. Um, so that's what we're going to go through today. First, how to make what looks like an aged film photo. Very much going for a destroyed look. So if you're looking for something that looks kind of nice and pleasant, not the place to be. This is going to look kind of creepy and old. And then after that, I'm going to show you how to do the same process, but make it look kind of um, double exposure, which is when you accidentally take a picture over already used film. So let's go ahead and get to that. This is an incredibly easy process. This should not be a long video. So right here I have a screenshot I took in Minecraft. No particular reason why, I just have a lot of Minecraft screenshots on hand. Um, so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to take our base layer and we are going to switch it to black and white. That should not shock anyone. Now, here's where things get a little bit more complicated. If you don't have like a film photo sitting next to you, you can pretty much eyeball this from memory. Um, in general, your reds are going to be your darkest tone. Your blues, so that's cyan and blue, are going to be blown out. You're going to want those all the way to the top. Greens, yellows, and magenta is where I find you kind of need to like mess with it a bit to get what you, because you don't want to really crank these up or it ends up looking too white. You don't want to lower it too much or you end up losing uh texture period throughout the photo. And so it really needs to be case by case basis. I know it's not going to be case by case with real film, but for the sake of aesthetics, you're going to want to make that a case by case basis. So your reds should be the darkest, your blues should be the lightest, everything else measure accordingly. Um, and one of the great things with starting with specifically weathering the picture is you don't have to worry about it looking perfect, right? Because the entire point is we're trying to make it look worn. We're trying to make it look a little bit like torn and burnt and broken. And so we can really mess with this and dial it in, and you can kind of break those expectations of even like yourself with learning to appreciate the process as opposed to the perfections of the art, because it doesn't have to look perfect here. It's gonna look good even if you make it look bad. And that's kind of that's why this is a good place to start if you're getting into like photo manipulation and specifically like texturing photos. So once we have our colors kind of how we like them, I'm gonna darken my greens a bit more. There's not a whole lot of yellow in this. Well, there's a little bit right here. So I'm just gonna kind of actually gonna make the yellows lighter than the greens here because I want the contrast between grass and the trees. And we're gonna leave it there. So the next thing we're gonna do, and it's gonna sound really counterintuitive, but at the same time, I find that this actually makes it look more legitimately like a photograph, and that is inverting the picture. You're gonna want to invert that color, and it's gonna turn into essentially a photo negative, which, in my opinion, in the end, makes it look better when we flip it back. So Now that you have those adjustment layers, this is the optional step. Um, I will sometimes, in order to kind of distort the edges of the photograph, add a vignette. This is, hang on, this needs to be lower down. This is the most optional of the steps. And remember here, because we have not blown it back up, these light corners, this exposure setting, that's going to turn dark again. And so in this case, I'm probably not going to keep it, but I'm going to show you anyways that if you want to distort the corners a lot, you're going to want to add a vignette. Now, we're going to add a vignette later. This is not that vignette. This vignette is meant to distort. It is meant to distort the original picture. Later, it's going to be one that's meant to darken. This one is not meant to do that. This one is meant to distort. So, probably not going to keep this one. I'm going to keep the layer there, but we're not going to keep this specific vignette. And then the final effect that you can add, if I can find it here, is dust and scratches. Now, this does not work the way you're going to think it does. It does not add any kind of physical dust to the picture, but it does add this kind of distortion where you could imagine like imperfections in the film. I believe if you are using GNU Image Manipulation Program, so GIMP, that has like a physical effect for dust and scratches. I'm not using that at the moment. I'm using Affinity. At some point, I might go back and do this tutorial again for GNU because I do like GNU. It's what I used before Affinity became free and publicly available. And if you're doing this on a phone, it's also an entirely different process. This is specifically for Affinity, which is free online, as I mentioned. It's made by Canva, and on here they have this live dust and scratches filter. It does not add any kind of physical dust or scratches. It adds imperfections into the edges of things. And it's very sensitive. You do not need much of this effect. I'm gonna put it to maybe I'm gonna say a 2 for this specific case. And this can actually go higher up. Now, here is the part where it's gonna sound a lot more complicated than it is. We're gonna blend an overlay onto this, and this is where it's gonna really come together. And I recommend having a personal library of images for like stock images for effects. In this case, I am using one from Texture Labs. It is a really good free source for beginners or really even veterans of image manipulation. He has a lot of free resources, he has some paid resources, and he has a YouTube channel. Personally, I learned from watching a lot of Texture Lab videos how to do this. And frankly, I think a lot of you could also learn as well. In general, I would say support him if you would like. We are using his paper effect. Oh, there we go. Haha. Okay, we all have brain farts sometimes. So, what we're going to do, and we're going to scale this down. Always better, by the way, to have higher resolution than lower. As you can always scale down, you cannot always scale back up. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And what we're going to do now is we are going to take this, we're going to make it also black and white. Oh, also black and white. And we're not going to touch any of the sliders. We just want a neutral black and white as it originally was. Now, here's where it's fun. Because if you remember, we inverted our original picture. So if we go down to negation on blend. Oh, wait, hold up. I forgot a step. You got to merge these. Merge your selected, make it one image. Then you go down to negation. And there we go. Our colors are back to the way they were before. Now, here is where we add that second vignette. Gonna crank down the exposure. I don't like the default shape that Affinity uses. I'm gonna say that just outright. I'm not a fan. I like when it kind of has a smooth border around the entire picture, which it doesn't by default. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to, oh, that's too much. Kind of adjust that to be just right. And if you're noticing here, it's not an exact science, and that is okay. It's entirely subjective for one thing. It's also a process for every single photo you do. No photo is going to look the same. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to add that vignette. And then the last effect we're going to do, and this is again, this is case by case, completely optional. Not every picture is going to need this, but we're going to add noise. Not a lot. This is another one where it's like you really don't want to go overboard with noise. And then that's it. That's literally it. You can play with your values, you can use other textured backgrounds, but this is what the final product is ultimately going to come down to. It's just effects, effect layers, blending. It's just knowing how to use the tools to make it achieve this effect. Now, we're going to move on to demonstration 2, which is the double exposure. Once again, we're using a Minecraft screenshot. As I stated, I just have a lot of them. And this is kind of a this is a bit of a more involved process because we're doing the same thing that we just did, but we're doing it twice, one on top of the other. So we're going to take our base picture. We're going to do what we did with the last one. Crank up our blues, lower our reds, and play with our greens here. Green and yellow. And don't mind some of the like jankiness that you might see with like the leaves, because at the end of the day, it in my opinion, it's going to add to the end result. Because there's going to be jankiness with old film. There's going to be the kind of light leaking and such. And so in this case, if you want it gone, you can get rid of it, but leave some imperfections because it ends up looking, it has more character when you leave the imperfections. All right, so we have our adjustment there, and then we're going to invert. And am I gonna add a? I'm not gonna add a vignette, and I'm gonna show you why. I'm not even gonna bother with a vignette here. So, what I am gonna do is I am gonna add dust and scratches. There we go. We're just gonna do a 2 this time again. Actually, I don't know if I like that in this case. We're gonna do a 1. I want some of that imperfection. I don't want it overpowering the image. Okay, so now that we have our first image done, now this is where disclaimer. This is where it becomes no longer lossless. You're gonna have to merge this. It's not gonna work right if you don't. You're gonna have to merge it, or at the very least, group it. I trust myself enough. I'm gonna merge. If you do group, it will look like this, and you can go back and you can edit. You know what? I'll leave it in a group, just to show that you can. But this is where things become a little bit more permanent. You got to trust yourself, and trust yourself. You should. So now we're going to add our second photograph, which we're going to double expose on top of the other. Now, what I am realizing I did here is I'm putting the darker image on top of the lighter image, which is kind of a no can do. But I'm gonna go through with it anyways because you can do it. It's just gonna be a lot of adjustment to make sure that you can still see this photo underneath. So we are going to edit this picture much like we edited the one below it. We're going to go black and white, blow out the blues. Actually, you know what I'm realizing? I can have some fun here. Got to know the rules before you break them, but you can break the rules. We're gonna break the rules here because I think it's gonna look better if we break the rules a bit here because we have some weird colors, right? If we turn this off, we have some weird colors here. It's not earthly. It's very like interplanetary. We've got a green moon and a blue moon, and the sky itself is a much darker blue. So we're not gonna edit it like a day photo. We're gonna leave it kind of like this. Maybe a few more adjustments just to make sure it is a dark photograph. We do have a little bit of yellow. Actually, I like that highlight. We're going to bring out the yellows. Okay, so we have that. We're going to go ahead and drop our invert as well. Now, here's what's funny. If we just kind of... So it completely... That's why you have to group your images. It completely undoes the invert on the photo below it, which we don't want just yet. So we're doing that, and then we're going to drop our... wrong category, our dust and scratches. And we're going to do it on this top photo a little bit more than we do it on the bottom photo, because our top photo at the end of the day is going to be blended into the bottom photo to achieve the effect that I want. And obviously you can do it differently if you have a reason to. So we're going to go ahead and group those, and then we're going to blend this to one of these categories. Now, the reason I say one of is because this is another situation where it is going to vary picture to picture. So realistically, it's going to be either linear burn or color burn, right? But in this picture, it doesn't look good. And while yes, you may want a realistic effect, you probably also want an artsy effect, right? You want it to look kind of appealing. So I'm not going to use a color or linear burn. I'm thinking either darken or darker color. Which one do I like better there? I'm going to say darker color gives me a little bit more fidelity with my blend. So we're going to do darker color. And I like what's being achieved here. So these pictures were more or less randomly selected. I randomly chose them. But I like what's happening here because now we have a very I'm gonna say like fever dream looking river leading to nowhere, and then the sky behind it. It has this like visual effect that I like, almost movie poster like, where it's not realistic, but it is cinematic, I'm gonna say. So we have our two pictures here, and we're going to merge these. Well, we'll group them. Okay, so we're gonna group our groups. And then on top of that, now we are getting to where we were with the other one. I'm just gonna use the same, actually no, I'm not gonna use the same paper this time. I'm gonna use another one I have on standby, just to show you that this works with other textures. Um, we're gonna scale it down to our image. At least as best we can. All right. And now we're going to do the same thing here. Black and white, right? And then we're going to blend or group these. Actually, with this, you can really just merge it. It doesn't really matter. And then we are going to go into negation. And now it looks even cooler. In my opinion, it looks even cooler. And in this case, I'm still going to add the vignette. I like the vignette, so I'm still going to add the vignette. We're going to make it a little smaller, though. Okay, so that is our picture. I'm not even going to add noise to this. I like the end result without the noise. So that is the two demonstrations that I'm going to give for this. You can go back, you can look at what I did. At the end of the day, all of this is subjective. Now that you know the basics, you know what to break. In the future, I want to do another one showcasing how I make what looks to be like a physical book cover entirely out of digital assets. So that'll be coming in the future. But for now, you can look in the description, and I will leave all the assets I'm allowed to leave, because I do believe this is not royalty free, but I will leave the assets I'm allowed to leave that I have access to, as well as a link to Texture Labs where you can get your own, where you can find paper textures in the description so that you can follow along with how I did it. Now, I would suggest that once you do follow along, you just go outside, you take a picture, you bring it in, you do the same thing. Because at the end of the day, yes, this is easy for me. It'll probably be easy for you. But the only way to learn technique is to do, to practice until you understand the tools you're using. And that is ultimately the goal with showing you where to start, is that you can figure out where you're going to finish. I hope that this tutorial has been helpful to someone. Maybe you've been trying to get into image manipulation, this is a good start for you. Or maybe you just had a specific picture that you wanted to apply an effect to for some unrelated project. Hopefully this helps you achieve that. I will see you all in the next video, again, making a video cover entirely out of, or a video cover, a book cover entirely out of digital assets. For now, though, I am signing off.